Hey everyone, welcome back. It's been a long time, I think. First of all, I hope you guys enjoyed that B-roll segment. I always love doing that at the beginning of my videos just to kind of have like that creative aspect before we jump into all the important stuff, I guess. Today, we're taking a look at the XPS 15 9510. This is a model from 2021, and I have a lot of thoughts about this because I think it's a very interesting laptop, right? A lot of people have been saying it's the perfect laptop, right, on the Windows side. And a lot of people are saying this because it fundamentally nails the basic pillars of any laptop, right? So when I'm looking at a laptop, we start off with the design, right? So the design includes the build quality, the different ports that you have on your laptop. And number two is the display, right? So you're gonna be staring at that all day. You wanna make sure it's bright, it's colorful, it's saturated. Three is the performance, right? So you wanna make sure that it lasts for a very long time and has amazing performance. Number four is the battery life. This is designed to be a portable laptop, right? It's not designed to be a desktop replacement. The whole point of it is to take it with you, minimum 6 hours of battery life. So I feel that this XPS 15 and really all the XPS 15s, they nail most of these fundamentals, which is why so many people buy them. So I wanna go through these 4 pillars and I wanna talk a little bit about each of them and then also wrap up the video with my thoughts about using this as a student as well in a day-to-day life. All right, so to start off with the design and the build quality, this is a 15.6 inch, I believe, unibody aluminum laptop. There's really not a great way to describe how it feels, but the finish is really, really well, right? So you can tell that it's a very high quality finish everywhere around the laptop. All the edges, they're not super sharp, they're machined perfectly. There's no, bending anywhere in the laptop, even the display. There's literally no flexing at all. Now the hinge is a little bit special because it's able to be opened with one hand, but it doesn't feel flimsy at all, right? So whatever angle you put it in, like this, it just holds it. And it's these small things that add up, right? So like right now you're not gonna notice it, but after a few years, you want all of this to hold up over time, right? That's what's really important here. So for the I/O on the left side, we have 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports that are USB-C. And on the right side, we have one USB 3.2 Type-C, a headphone jack, and an SD card slot. Now this is a game changer because for creative professionals, right, for video editors, for photographers, this is so useful. It's amazing, right? Without needing an adapter, I can just plug in my SD card and get right to editing or whatever I want to do, right? Just viewing files even. And it's super useful for on-the-go use, right? No adapter needed. It is amazing. By far, honestly, one of my favorite parts of this laptop, right? Just that SD card slot. It's amazing. There's also a USB-C to USB-A and a couple other ports adapter provided in the box. So it's very useful, even though the I/O is a little bit lacking. It is a little bit helpful that they gave you that adapter in the box. Now this is one of the cons of this laptop, and I think some people might find it a major con, is kind of this lack of USB-A support as well as HDMI support. Really, we're moving more towards USB-C, and for me, it's not been that big of an issue, mainly because I don't really use flash drives that much anymore. The SD card slot is great, right? But for HDMI, usually I'll just plug in the USB-C or I'll get an adapter, and it's not that big of a deal anymore. Now on the outside, underneath the trackpad area on the outside, there's also a charging LED, which is pretty cool. It does show you from the outside without opening up the laptop if it's charging or not, discharging, whatever. It's a pretty nice touch. Now that we are on the inside, we can talk a little bit about the keyboard and the trackpad, right? So this keyboard is pretty interesting. I don't think it's as good as the Surface laptop, but it is pretty solid. Now I think the main thing that's missing is a bit of travel, but I really like the layout, and I really like kind of like the perfect sizing of each of the keys, right? So sometimes some manufacturers on Windows, they'll do like this weird mishmash of like different key sizes, which is really annoying. I do like the texture on the keys as well, but I've gotten to the same speed as I was on my Surface laptop, so it's not that big of a deal. Now the trackpad is really cool. So it's a really big trackpad. It reminds me a lot of the MacBooks, and it allows for a lot of kind of accuracy in terms of tracking, and you can use your thumb to kind of go around as well, which is really cool, right? And it's much better than just having like empty blank space around the trackpad area, so it's good to see. On the sides of the keyboard, we also have these really big front-facing speakers. Now again, these aren't quite MacBook quality, but they're still one of the best on a Windows laptop. Way better than the Surface laptop for sure. For the thermal design, it will suck in fresh air from the bottom here using these vents, and then it'll get exhausted out the back under the display, which is pretty interesting. It does work pretty well. At times it can get pretty loud. The coil whine is pretty apparent, but that's also been a problem with the XPS for a long time. But it does get the job done, right? Temperatures don't go super high, but it is overall pretty decent. Now for this display. This display is the crazy part. So the first thing you notice about this laptop is of course the display, because it's amazing. Now there's a couple of things about this display. Number one is that the Infinity Edge design has been used for a very long time, right? So they've been using this for quite a while on the XPS 13 and the 15 and the 17, but it used to have this chin at the bottom, right? Which was really weird. They put the webcam there as well. So it was kind of Infinity Edge for really the top and the side bezels, right? That was really thin. And starting with this generation of the laptop, they actually reduced the bottom bezel as well, and they fit the webcam to the top bezel. Now the webcam is horrible, which sucks for a lot of people, especially because this is like a business-oriented laptop. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. This is a first generation laptop. I think they did fix it a little bit, but it looks amazing. Multimedia is amazing on this laptop because the bezels are really thin. One thing a lot of people don't realize about this laptop is that since the bezels are so small, the screen is still 15 inches, right? But since the bezels are smaller, the physical body, like the footprint of this laptop, is physically smaller than most 15.6-inch laptops, right? So it feels more like a 14-inch laptop, which is really cool, right? That means that you're getting the same screen size in a smaller form factor, which is really good, right? It's been a trend for with most Windows laptops, even MacBooks now. They have like that kind of notch design that's kind of weird, but the rest of the bezels are really thin, which is really good to see because it saves you real estate in your backpack, on your desk, wherever it may be. So this display is also a 16:10 aspect ratio. It gets very bright, it has great contrast. Usually most things do look pretty good. I would recommend disabling the auto brightness feature because it's horrible on Windows for some reason. And also disable like all the self-refresh, like just change the brightness yourself. It'll save you a lot of time. It doesn't get quite as bright, so it's only about 500 nits. So in direct sunlight, you might not be able to use it properly, but in most conditions, it is pretty good. Now the other thing is in that top bezel camera, there's also a Windows Hello sensor, which I think does work pretty well most of the time. So of course you need to recalibrate each time if you get new glasses or you change something about your face. But in most conditions, I think it works pretty well. Sometimes it does have difficulty kind of tracking onto your face and getting like that lock on properly, but it's not that big of a deal. I think it does work better than typing in a pen for sure. Now for the performance. Now this is another one of those solid kind of pillars that make up a really good laptop, right? So in this laptop, we have an i7 11800H, an 8-core processor with 16 gigabytes of RAM, a 512 gigabyte SSD, which was upgraded, which we'll talk about a little bit later, and an RTX 3050 Ti. Now the performance for the graphics card specifically, it benchmarks, when we're talking about relative to about a GTX 1060 on a desktop, it benchmarks about 30 to 40% faster, right? So that's what you can kind of use to compare this specific model with this graphics card. So as for the CPU and the RAM, it's been pretty good. I haven't ever like actually gotten that high of temps on either one of the GPU or the CPU. The CPU works really good. I've never actually hit 100% utilization because it's 8 cores. So for most applications, especially video editing, I get maybe 80 to 90% utilization, which is really good. That means that there's a bit of headroom. My other favorite thing about this laptop is that it's really easy to upgrade. So if you open the back, you can actually upgrade the RAM, the SSD, and the Wi-Fi card, although I don't think you'll need to upgrade the Wi-Fi because it's pretty good. But upgrading the SSD is awesome. So there's actually an extra slot open, and I added a 1 terabyte SSD. So I just slotted it in, and then you have to do some stuff in Windows to actually make sure it shows up on your laptop. And that's pretty much it, right? So you have it up and running and you just put it in your laptop. The RAM you can also upgrade to 64 gigabytes and you can put 4 terabytes of SSD storage per each of those slots. So for battery life, usually I get around 8 to 9 hours of battery life, right? So with heavy usage, obviously you're gonna get less, so about 5 to 6. But for general usage, especially as a student, right? As an engineering student, it's very easy to get through a full day. So this is an 86 watt hour battery, and on most days I do not hit 0% until I actually get back like after classes and stuff, right? Which is great, which is exactly what you need in this kind of a laptop. The things that I find really cool about this laptop is that for the performance that it offers, it's very lightweight, right? So most laptops are not going to be this lightweight, especially if they're more gaming oriented, and they're not going to have that great of a battery, which is really the key here, right? Battery life and this trade-off between portability, battery life, and performance, right? That's really the three things that kind of you got to balance properly, because gaming laptops will generally just stuff it with performance, but they'll slack on battery life and portability, right? This laptop is kind of that middle ground triangle between all three of those things, right? All right, so that's for this video. Again, if you're looking for a Windows laptop, I'd highly recommend you check this out. I think for most people, it is really, really, really close to being perfect. There are these small things that kind of mess it up, but you know, if you are willing to overlook that, I think it's an amazing laptop with a great balance, right? Being a great workhorse of a laptop. So that's it for me. If you like this video, make sure to leave a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one.